Let's dive right into the topic for this week, which is tool migrations, something that comes up over and over, no matter if it is inside the community, in our inner circle coaching sessions, on YouTube, in the comments. I keep seeing it, and I published a video about migrating information between note-taking apps. And Paco published an article about migration too. And to close the loop, we have a session today discussing these two
what a coincidence.
These two contents, and give even more perspectives and examples on what we have to consider when we migrate between different tools. And feel free to share any use case inside the chat that we can discuss there too. So Paco, what experience do you have with tool migrations?
Well, too many.
Pretty
painful,
exactly.
All of them.
Again, something we have in common, that we perfectionized to move on to the next tool, as we just need to stay on top of the best tools out there. So there was a lot of tool hopping.
That's why we always conclude that the best option is not to move at all.
Exactly. And that's where
that's the best migration.
When our members lay their tool stack on the ICOR framework, there's an area that's called core applications that gives you the warning if you place anything in there and you remove it or change it, it will have a great impact on your productivity. So it doesn't matter what tool, and that's why we call this title here tool migrations and not specific tool like note taking or project. It applies to all of them. If you have something implemented that you're using on a daily basis, it will hurt when you move on. So it's all about making informed decisions, or you're very safe in a tool agnostic workflows and concepts that you move on. And that's what Paco and I do, and many of our members do too. Once you realize what you're actually doing in these tools in a tool agnostic sense, moving to the next tool, it's a piece of cake because you know exactly what you move on. But these are two things, right? First, moving on these workflows and concepts, tool agnostic sense, and then being aware what you actually need to migrate when it comes to data, information, and so on. And in many cases, there's not much you need to move to another system. That's what we learned over the past years, decades, doing this.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that the thing is understanding what you are doing and the starting point. And I think that for that, again, ICOR, that's why we created a methodology, because the moment that you have a methodology behind any step, it's pretty intuitive, I would say. It's based on common sense, and it's not a challenge, no matter that depending on the type of migration. Maybe you have to dedicate longer or shorter, but I think that the most important thing is, first off, differentiating between the main two worlds in ICOR and the world of productivity, that is information and action. It's not the same migrating an information system than an action system. By that, we can mean it's not the same to migrate or change your note-taking and PKM tool. It's not the same migrating the business knowledge management. It's not the same migrating your project management tool. And it's not the same migrating your task management tool. All of them have specific different use cases, and we need to start, asking ourselves what we are going to try to migrate. And again, one of our tools, the ICOR framework, is the one that can help us a lot, okay? There are 4 main areas. It's the personal information area, personal action, business information. When we talk about business in the ICOR framework, we refer to team-related, okay? Personal refers to the individual, whereas business refers to the team, okay? So it's not the same if the migration affects only you or if it affects the whole team, the whole department, or even the whole company, right? Now I'm in the middle of, not in the middle, I would say the end of the storm, okay, of a business migration, talking about the ERP. And that was quite painful, and we're still suffering. It's a migration that it's taking months, okay? And that's why we recommend, the moment that we perfectly identify the type of tool that we're going to migrate, based again in the types that we consider in ICOR, if it's a core app, satellite app, or utility app, the things that we need to take into account. And then little by little, we can start saying and sharing recommendations, okay, depending on the area that we are dealing with. For instance, we can start with personal information.
Yeah, exactly. And Mark already says in the chat, the recent video and article have been timely and helped massively as I move company. It's taught me to let go and feel the need to take everything. So, yeah, Sometimes you just need the permission to let something go, and that's what we gave you. You are allowed to leave the things behind. There you go. Now you can blame us for losing all that data. No, obviously you need to know what really matters right now. That's key. What is the things that matter right now? If you want to save business data from 10 years ago, this is probably nostalgia. It was already, if it was, building a company and things like that, it's no longer relevant. Obviously, when you come to Germany, you have to store data for decades in order to show for the government, the traceability and things like that. That's our other story. We are talking here just about productivity tools and not the actual business systems. And Paco mentioned that business is team related. Obviously, it also applies to solopreneurs. So that's why we call it business knowledge management, to make aware that this is the business related knowledge that is relevant to the business, whereas the personal knowledge management refers to really your own thoughts and the way you build things. And if you're a solopreneur starting out, this might merges and overlaps, right? So you both, but then you would place this tool in both areas for business knowledge management and personal knowledge management. So that was it for this session. Thanks for watching. Next week. There's not much more to say, right, Paco?
Well, there's a lot to say, and I could say that it's not enough 30 minutes.
No?
But we will stick to the plan. Okay, we will stick to the plan as we always do, because the point is that synthesizing something like migration through all kind of systems inside your productivity system in just 30 minutes, well, that's a real challenge, okay? But we're going to try our best, as always. And we will start with information, okay? Personal information. Let's forget about business, team-related information, so just information. I think that it's important to distinguish, okay? Mainly between two types of information, because how important and crucial they are, it's totally different, okay? We need to differentiate between what we call, and well, it's well known as personal information system. This is the operational system. For instance, if you have contacts, imagine that you have contacts, okay, with your email, phone number, whatever, okay? You cannot compare that with what we consider personal knowledge management, okay? That it's more passive, okay? That someday knowledge that you have is not at the same level, okay? So you need to study the type of information that you are gonna migrate and how crucial it is. Because one thing that I have concluded by myself is that the PKM, all that information that I've structured, thought about, it's all processed, okay? Most of them is all processed. You just need to be aware of the current projects, okay? And the things that you are currently running, especially nowadays that the world runs so fast that everything gets outdated. And something that I have tested by myself is that the moment I have been pretty radical, okay? Not moving anything at all and just counting, and I jot them down, the number of times that I went back to the old system the moment that I migrated. Talking about, again, I insist, personal knowledge management, okay? And it was just one or twice, within decades, okay? Decades. I remember when I moved away from Evernote, I never looked back, okay? That was information that was totally outdated. That represented me at that time. And the point is that we are changing constantly of circumstances or realities. So that information tends not to be useful, okay? And what I always recommend is just keep the old system alive. It's a subscription. You will evaluate if it's worth it, the amount of money that you are spending to keep that system alive as an archive system. And the moment that you feel calm is the moment that you stop paying for that information, and you haven't made a migration at all, okay? You have just changing tools and see what happens. I also see that that's pretty life-changing. It's like starting from scratch, forgetting about all the little mess that you can have in your current PKM system, and starting from scratch, giving priority to the things that really matter to you at that moment, and also taking advantage of the new tool, okay? Because many times, for instance, imagine that you are moving, I don't know, let's be radical, as always, from Evernote to Tana. how you organize the information is totally different. Why are you going to try to make a migration, creating, I don't know, nodes based on nodes that you have in the previous system? That doesn't make sense. It's much better to start from scratch, to see why that system is much better and taking advantage of that new system. Okay. And for me, it's quite life-changing. And that's the approach that I have always done. And it works. Okay. I have done, I don't know how many jumps from one tool to the other, talking about core apps. Okay. The ones that I use mainly for my PKM and note-taking system. And I have never have the sensation that I was missing, because something that I do, and this is something to take into account, is the moment that you consider that an information is really crucial, something that you say, man, I want to keep this for my whole life, I just create in my structure, my life structure on Google Drive, a Google Doc, and I create it there, and that's it. So I know that no matter what happens, even if the current tool disappears, that's something that if you bet in serious tool, they don't disappear overnight. And you have time to make the transition, the migration, whatever. And the current, if that's the case, that, by the way, never happened to me. Okay, I never bet on a tool that disappear from one day to the other. So I have that crucial information in G Drive, because I consider that I will keep betting on Google for the long term, and that's it. And that's it. And I think that the moment that you give that a try, also being backed because you haven't cancel your current subscription of the old system, is the moment that you start noticing that 99% of the information that you're currently working on is nonsense, okay? And you are just aware of the information that matters to you at that moment, that mainly are your current projects. With that, you can save a lot of time, okay? Make the transition and start from scratch. And the moment that you need to go back is the moment that you move and migrate that information to the new system. For me, that's something that it works.
Yeah, and that's exactly the same for me. And that what, whenever we recommended this to our members, saw great success there too. And yet still, I see these comments like just today, I saw a comment below a video where I compared the state of Obsidian versus Heptabase, and that I'm not going back to Obsidian, right? I really look into it. It's a fair comparison. And yet there's a comment below saying, yeah, but on Obsidian, I own my data and it gives me the markdown files and I have full access to the information. Little did he know that Heptabase does provide you also the markdown files, even with the JSON file along, and you can re-migrate or whatever. I don't care. The fact is, there are markdown files with all the information that you have in Heptabase that you can export at any time. And I'm not even sure if it, because you can run Heptabase also just locally, right? There's no internet connection required. If this is something you're concerned about, I'm not sure if there's Markdown directly accessible, but for sure you can export a whole database in Markdown files. Not many tools do that, but Heptabase does it. So now the argumentation could come out, yeah, but these Markdown files, there might have information, how things are connected. Yeah, but Obsidian is not better. That's the problem. Even that I have access to all the Markdown files, if you have plugins or anything running on Obsidian, it will add additional formatting and let's say a code to the Markdown files, so the plugins can recognize these files and connect them together with other files. And now with the new table structure and all these things that are in Obsidian, it's impossible to have a simple Markdown file and still keep things organized. And that's where what Paco just mentioned, moving on to something like Tana, it's impossible to just import this. It's nonsense. It will give you just a list of nodes, but it won't keep the connections properly right. I mean, you can go further and feed these things into AI and make some workarounds, but that's not what we are here for. We are pragmatic. We want to move on. We don't want to lose time as a busy professional, but we decided to move on. Well, then let's keep the time also in using the new system, keep the things running, and keep the other in the background. And as we just mentioned, migrate over manually the things that really matter. And then something that Paco also mentioned about the business data, I think it's really important to understand that especially, well, in my case, Heptabase, for example, yes, we have my life concept in there. There's my key elements in there. There's a lot of personal things in there going on. But when it comes to business related things, the end result is in the places that they should go to. So the thought process happened in the personal knowledge management system, but the conclusion, the outcome ended up in the final system. ClickUp, right, where we track our publications of videos and articles, or Dropbox, right? These are to me, and Google, as you said, the Google Docs and things like that, as these are systems that I also consider they won't go anywhere anytime soon. So if I have really something really important also to my personal life, it ends up either in Dropbox or on Google or in the other systems that we consider won't change at all moving forward. And that's what people then think they make it easy by using one tool for everything. But that's the struggle. If you use one tool like Notion for everything and you're really great in personal knowledge and then you have your business knowledge in there and then you want to move on and everything is in there, it makes things much more complicated. So business related things should always end up in a sophisticated system. No doubt about this. And then the personal knowledge management is so fluent and will grow from month to month that, as we keep saying, looking back, the information is just no longer relevant. And then if we have sentimental things, right, that really are important for us personally, well, I'm using day one. There I track my highlights, my milestones, the things that I want to keep forever. And I even have a paper journal still there that I, every now and then, every few years, I add an entry where I write something down. So when I go through it, it is actually interesting to read it. Instead of having every day everything tracked, you will never go back because you would need the same time for your whole life to read through all this. So just thinking about what goes in what system and to what distilled level it goes in each system gives you again freedom. So if Heptabase disappears tomorrow, well, it would be stupid about the thought process that I did on the whiteboards about finance and whatever. But the real important nostalgia things doesn't live in Heptabase to me. That's why I'm not using it for journaling in a sense of my personal journaling, but only for meeting notes and things like that. So it's good to have the things spread, but not scattered. So you have the same piece of content in different tools in a different way. But I have very specific content in very specific tools. And Mark also says, I lost track of how many notebooks I had stacked on my desk with information I thought I would use again one day, only to throw them away. Exactly. That's exactly what happened. Yeah. You don't keep full notes around to remember how you add 1 + 1, right?
Yeah, and also this is, well, many people will shout at me due to the things that I'm going to say right now, but if the solution to become is storing things in markdown files, well, I'm sorry to say that for me that's not an approach, specifically for a busy professional. Okay, if going back to the past, okay, how is information? Well, we can go back to paper and then go back to a stone, and then we guarantee that we won't lose anything at all. But in my case, and again, I insist, it's something personal, but in my case, assuming that a markdown tool is better just for the sake of the local storage, and you are not able to use some of the features that I consider much more important, because something that people state talking about markdown is that they consider that at any moment they will be able to find a tool to read that information because it's plain text. Well, could be. I don't know. We thought that, many devices were going to survive no matter the time. But I don't believe I ended up so fed up of files, physical files, and I suffered so much. And for me, it was such a life-changing moment, the moment that I started working with databases, that I promised myself to never look back. Okay,
that's the point.
I'm talking about big systems using COBOL, for instance, big mainframes in IBM and those type of things, and that's for me so basic. Okay, so basic that I don't care, and also because I have concluded that my PK information is not so crucial. Okay, it was crucial at that moment, but the rest was just due to the circumstances. And I think that this is something, as Mark said, many people store for the sake of storing, okay, because they never look back, because that information is completely out of date, or is information that you can look for on the internet nowadays, okay? Or, well, there are many options, okay? Finding, and also, I think that not being dramatic in life, it's something that helps a lot, okay? I think that there isn't a document that is so crucial that my life depends on it, okay? I will find out a way to solve that, to find that information, to look for a duplicate, to ask for a duplicate, or to assume the circumstances, but not being able to evolve or to make, especially right now that from time to time you need to migrate, okay? Because new software appears, new solutions, new approaches. In my case, when I moved away from Evernote and that folder approach, it was life-changing, changing to tools like Run Research at that moment and all those type of tools that it was a complete different way of storing information, and because of that, of thinking, I was changing my way of thinking. So trying to go back and force the new tool to use and to store the information the same way that it was doing. And right now, imagine with AI, there are many changes that affect the way that not only that we store the information, because here we are not talking about, well, it used backlinking. No, it's the way I think. Thanks to using a different tool, I start thinking differently. And this is something that people need to understand. I am not the same person talking about the thinking process that I was when I was storing things in files, that when I was using a visual, because I'm talking about plain files, okay? A blank screen, well, black screen at that moment, okay? With letters in green, interacting with nerdy commands, okay? And storing there. It's not the same way that when I started using relational databases, and it is not the same me talking about the thinking process. So if we start trying to force the thing to a total new paradigm, I would say, it's a mistake, okay? Because you are not allowing yourself to have that sense of release. Because I remember the moment that I moved to Run Research and that approach of storing information and thinking, for me, it was liberating, okay? Because I was feeling the friction that the file system and folder system wasn't helping me at all, And exactly the same when I was working with Obsidian for 2 years, okay? And I implemented everything, the one and only tool, okay? With Obsidian. I was suffering there. When I again started splitting and betting on the right tools, for me, it was liberating. So I think that the moment that we talk about migrations, I prefer to leave by the way, keeping the Obsidian that I think that it's 45 euros per year or something like that, okay? To synchronize the thing. So keeping the subscription for Obsidian, and also a company that made an amazing job and is still doing an amazing job. I like to support that companies, okay? And for 45 euros per year,
Yeah,
or
but
dollars.
most people use it because it's free. They say then, but Heptabase is not free, so I'm using Obsidian. Yeah. If you look for free, you will get free. That's the point. And talking about syncing, and it's important because exactly the same people say then, but I don't want to use cloud services. I want to own my data. How many times I read this, I want to own my data. What does it mean? What does it mean? So I was just while you've been talking, bringing up a post inside our community that reminded me of this topic too. And it is Rhonda, who shared inside the community 2 years ago, man, it's already 2 years ago, a post about how her house burned down.
Oh, yeah, I remember that story, yeah.
Right? And it's a long article, so if you remember, you can read it inside the community. But here is where she writes then, here is the part I want everyone to read carefully, and thank you for doing so. Remember, I lost everything in my office, files, legal documents, vehicle registrations, receipts, etc. But every single one of these documents were scanned by the Raven scanner, well, back then, and sitting in a cloud of Evernote, OneDrive, and Raven. Sorry for yelling
I see.
because you wrote it in capital letters. I wanted you to hear it. In fact, I was scanning documents 2 days before the fire. My wife would mention, "Oh no, I lost this paper or that receipt. We will never get it back." I smiled and said, "Our cloud has it," or in this case, Raven has it. So she writes, "Tom Solid, I owe you so much. It was you opening your Raven scanner on a YouTube video right after my dad passed away that gave me the idea of buying one to scan my dad's things. Do you remember?" Blah, blah, blah. Long story, very tough story as well to read, but it shows if you say, "I want to have everything locally on my hard drive," I think where is the advantage over paper? Don't scan it at all. If it burns down, the hard drive will burn down. And how many times my father calls me and says, "Well, hard drive broken again. I tried to recover it," and things like that, the old hard drives. No, man, since I moved on to the cloud and then betting not on the cheap things, but the ones that you think, okay, Dropbox, Google, these are names where you think if they break down, there are huge corporates behind that will go down with them. So there will be a bigger issue than just me suffering from this. The whole world will suffer if these disappear. Well, then I spend the money each month. And in the paperless movement alone, we spend 180 euros per month just for the Dropbox, because we have all our video files in there, all our content, all these things, but I can be safe and sound. I have a link in ClickUp. We have a link to the relevant content inside this folder on Dropbox. And if ClickUp disappears, the content remains there. And that's the understanding, where you understand the crucial things to store them safely. And if you think it's safe in a box under the desk, then do it this way. But don't always say everything needs to be this way. Be aware what is the thing that you consider important, what needs to go outside. And I was very sensitive being in corporate, in pharmaceutical company, right? There's a lot of restrictions, security issues. You were not allowed to use tools like Evernote and so on unless you were able to show how you use it, because what is sensitive data and what is non-sensitive data and all these things. But I always ended up with the same conclusion. If I use a paper notebook and I write down a chemical structure that is crucial to the company and I lose this on the train, what is more valuable, right? The paper on the train or the laptop that at least somebody needs to hack in order to get the information? Sorry, but I'm getting fed up with these discussions. Use cases for people where these local storage and so is enough. But if you a business owner, if you a busy professional and need to have accessibility from your mobile phone, from all these things, and you're talking about how do I become more productive, and you make a fence around you, not looking into these options, then don't be surprised if you're left behind. That's it.
And also, I always say something talking about pricing. If you really consider that your X software, okay, not gonna say any of them, is expensive and it's not and you don't see it as an investment, it's because it's not your software, and that's it. That's it, okay? Because I am really happy, and well, I cannot tell you how much we spend in the whole company talking about software, okay? It has always been an investment. The last one, okay, it was the ERP. It wasn't just Salesforce plus the integration. It was even much more expensive than the Salesforce license. But I'm happy with it. I know that it's an investment, okay? And I'm suffering, okay, the transition because, well, it's quite a huge volume of data. It's been quite tough due to the circumstances and the reality of our business. But, well, I see it as an investment. And I think that that's a really question, okay? The moment that you consider that a software is expensive and you see it as an expense and not an investment, don't use it. Don't use it, because it's exactly the same like a car, you know? I know that I cannot drive a Ferrari or own a Ferrari because it's expensive for me. I cannot, it's not my car, okay? And nothing happens, okay? I need to find out some other thing and stay convinced, fully convinced of the software that I'm using on a daily basis, okay? Or just in case, this is like insurances. I don't know how much I spend in insurances in the different companies, okay? Just in case, but that's something that I need to admit that is worth it. Okay, so if you are paying for storage or because you want to move things calmly whenever you migrate from one software to the other, and you want to have a specific pieces of content, files, information that you consider crucial, and you think that it's too expensive, that right now, by the way, the how much you need to spend talking about the storage is a joke if we compare that with decades ago. Well, then assume the risks, okay? Assume the risk, but I wouldn't defend that option because you can state that it's the best option possible. Maybe it's just for you, but for most of the people, it's not. And for most of the people who defend that, it's because they don't have or don't want to spend that money in that piece of software. And I think that in business and for busy professionals, we need to take care of the costs when things happen that you weren't plan them out, okay? And that's something that it happens. You need to be ready, okay? If a client asks for a contract, for an offer that you prepare for, I don't know, something related to an employee, you need to assume, because if not, then you are not creating a business, okay? You're creating a hobby or something like that, something that is not serious. And the same way that you follow the rules, talking about, for instance, hiring people, okay? You follow all the rules. Talking about software, you need to understand that software, it is what it is, and in certain cases, it costs money. I would never say it's expensive because most of the people don't know how much it is to run a company, but a software company too, okay? They take for granted many things, and we are constantly seeing how amazing software projects fail, okay? They got into bankruptcy and they disappear, unfortunately, okay? So that shows how difficult it is. And by the way, we have seen constantly how those freemium, free services, whatever, they end up disappearing. All of them are only the companies who have that, critical number, okay, of clients are the ones who survive. Clients who pay for a product and allow them to survive, to grow, and to improve that product. And I think that that's the only approach when we are talking about something so crucial about how we organize our lives, the information that depends on it, and it's an asset for our lives. So we should pay for those services to stay calm and being productive, okay? I wouldn't be productive if I'm thinking that I can lose at any moment my data, my information, or my systems.
And I cannot stay calm when I read these comments. They keep coming because, not another subscription. Heptabase is too expensive. And this is just words. There is no thought behind this. And it seems like they are fed up with the influencers out there and the creators on YouTube as well, trying to tell you that you have a problem and this is a solution while you never had a problem in the first place. So they sell you something, they sell you a solution to a problem that you don't actually have. And that's why people are fed up, as they assume they need this tool to become more productive. Then they get it. It doesn't work. They pay a lot of money. And then, of course, it makes no sense. So, but the way we use the productivity tools, how much they cost is a joke. It is a joke. When we think about Superbase, I think it's the most expensive when it comes to a productivity tool, and for what part of the productivity system it covers, I think it's even more now than $40 per month. This is insane when you think about it, just about how just to manage my emails. It's not even an email provider and things like that. Yeah, but Paco and I, we are using it in such a way that using any other solution, the native Gmail and Outlook and so on, I would say, I don't know, 3 times the time I would need to go through this, even the suffering from clarity and all these things without superhuman. And if you don't have this understanding, then you really don't know why you use these tools at all, or why you need productivity tools. You need to start at the basics, thinking about the tool agnostic workflows and concepts that you're doing on a daily basis. And based on this realization, you can go out and look for the tools that work for you. And then it will justify any price, because the return of investment will make you more productive. Therefore, you get more time and you will make more money. It's as easy as that. But if you're a student and you cannot afford it and it doesn't really help you, yeah, that might be your use case. But that's not the people we are talking to. And Mary says in the chat, I remember Rhonda posting about this that made a permanent impression on me and spurred me into action. That's great. And Mark mentions, having that trusted place for personal things is vital. I keep the last text from my dad before he passed in my phone message app, but I have several screenshots of it saved elsewhere just in case I change phone platform. Yeah, exactly. These are exactly these examples. And we can't do more than we've ever been able to do, right? In the past, we are just so used that we are able to store all the information. But in the past, it was just 3 photos you had from your family, and that was it. And that's your childhood and things like that. And now, when I just consider all the iPhone photos that I have with my wife about children and so on, I think it's more than 10,000 photos we produce every year. So we have a system as well. The things that are really important or impactful or nice ones, we have a specific album where this goes in. It's already, again, 10,000 over the years, but at least it's somehow distilled because you will never go back and review all these photos. And I think that's a good way to close this call, because that's something others recommend to you too. You have to review your notes. You have to review your knowledge system. In the end of the week or end of the day, go through your notes and make connections and things like that. Man, if you have the time to do that, great. I tried to find a solution to a current problem. Once I have the solution there, I don't care about this anymore. It's there if I need to revisit it. But in the end of the day, it grows automatically and the pieces that I need grow with it. I don't need to review the things and take even more time to go through the whole thought process again. I don't know. Do you do this, Paco? Reviewing your...
No, at all. And I would like to also end up and wrap things up by defending the subscription model. Okay, I think that it was a revolution when SaaS emerged. Okay, that allowed the people, okay, to have access to amazing pieces of software that before that business model, it was impossible. And it also allowed the software companies to survive, to grow, and to thrive. And thanks to that, those hated subscriptions, okay, that people call them out, is why we are able to be much more productive, generate much more money, but also work better, okay? Work better. And I will always be thankful to that approach to software after seeing how companies were spending millions of euros and dollars per year, okay, per year, and end users not being able to have access to software that it was amazing, like Superhuman or any other solution that we are right now using, is because of the model. I will just use an example. I remember a huge post coming from Ulysses, okay, the writing app, where the founder changed the model, okay, from just one payment to this subscription model, perfectly justifying why he needed to do this move if he wants to deliver and improve the product, but also survive. And he was criticized because he was changing money. And I think, I don't know, but it was like €5 per month or something like that, man. And for me, that says it all, okay? And I think that is the full stop here.
No. Sorry, we have to go on. We have to go on because I have one more here as well. 1 second. Notability. I remember here, there's the video where I published November the 2nd in 2021, where Notability, the handwriting note-taking app, switched from one-time payment to a subscription model. And I have to find this comment now because this is gold.
Fortunately, it's perfectly stored.
Yeah,
I don't know
right? That shows how easy it is to find these things.
I don't know what our lives would have been without this essential information at this crucial and pivotal moment.
Yeah. I just need to... Mary says it as well. I think anyone that's skeptical of the cost of software should do a one-time study for at least one a week on how much time it takes to get the same work done without them versus the time it takes with them. I love this. That's really something you should do. And I'm pretty sure most people who are not aware of what they're paying and what tools they use and all this get information will recognize they will get a lot more done without using the productivity tools they're using because they just pick their tools. But this being said, I need to find this.
Meanwhile, I will do a short comment related to how to migrate action, because I think that this is important, okay? Because action is the one really crucial, okay? Your action system is the system that you use to manage your projects, you manage your tasks. There you have the things that really matters to you, your commitments. You cannot miss a deadline, you know? You need to keep the people trusting on you, no matter the tools that you are using or the process that you are going through. So here it's important to follow what we consider a 3-step process, where first you migrate the active projects, those that are urgent, imminent deadlines, the ones that you're gonna handle this week, the next 2 weeks, maybe the whole month, okay? But being simple, okay? Being simple, because later on you can start moving secondary projects as they emerge, okay? That you consider that they are important but not urgent, and let the relevant or outdated projects, because I think that the moment that we start analyzing our current systems, we can perceive that there are many things that they don't matter at all, and you have and enjoy a happy moment by archiving them, okay, or marking them as done. And I think that the moment that you do this migration following these 3 simple steps, it's pretty easy to quickly make the migration, okay? You delay on the time ahead this move, okay? And it's not so bold, okay? Because many people think that migrating is like when you move from one house to another, okay? That you need to pack everything and take with you everything to the new house. And that's not the case with software, no matter that it's even action, the action system, okay, where you have all your tasks or your organization, your planning. No, just keep things simple, move the things that are really urgent, crucial for the short term. And by short term, I mean your week, the next 2 weeks, and that's it. And little by little on the go, you keep moving things, because it will be insane. And that's what people think that they need to do. I need to move, I don't know, I can have, I don't know, hundreds of tasks active in my personal task management system. If I have to move that manually, because beware, forget about automations, okay? Talking about migrations, because this is something that unless you have an insane amount of data, migrations are really complex when you make an automation, okay? For instance, in my ERP, obviously, I have used automations and processes that were running in the back end, obviously, because I'm talking about an insane, but talking about an individual, okay? No matter how complex your life is, we are talking about hundreds of items, maybe 1,000. Well, do it calmly and following stages, because doing that within just one big shot, okay, is the thing that becomes overwhelming, okay, because you need to stop working on the things that matter. And we should always remember that people don't care about our current situation, if we are migrating or what the heck is going on with us, okay? We need to keep the things going as they naturally go, no matter the circumstances. So follow this step-by-step process where you can calmly, it doesn't matter, you don't need to move from one to the other with the exact same data stored from one day to another, okay? You can move to one system to another, and you can end up making the migration, I don't know, maybe 2 months, 1 month afterwards, and that doesn't matter at all. And I think that also this step-by-step process, talking about migration, brings you clarity. I think that the moment that you start things from scratch, that's a real moment to analyze and say, these are the projects that I consider that are crucial. Are they so crucial? Can I put on hold? Can I archive? Can I forget? And again, you gain that sensation of freedom, of release, that it's pretty interesting talking about yourself, okay? And as the migration have some trade-offs, also have these advantages that we should try to, multiply as much as possible, because that's the beautiful thing, no? When you start something with a fresh air, I think that that's quite nice in our complicated life and brings that additional peak of productivity that it's worth it and well deserved.
That's again a medal with two sides, right? Just to add to what you say here. Yes, that's exactly how I see it too. But myself, I was a victim of this. Hey, let's create this new system, this excitement. I saw the Notion template. I implemented it. I implemented it for 2 weeks. You too, Paco, right? Where you try to make Obsidian work. It has to work somehow. And all this time investment. This excitement is based on a blank canvas. You have the vision how it works, and it gives you motivation. You have to be careful that you don't procrastinate any crucial work around you, right? And that's again why we say don't just kill one tool and move to the other and start from scratch. Keep it running in parallel so you don't stop your actual, even if it is not 100% fully working a productivity system, but you have one in some way or form as you're productive, right? All our members are very productive actually, and they're just seeking for ways how to optimize the things, get the clarity and remove anxiety from their workday. And getting back to this comment that I was searching for, so I don't know if this guy removed it in the meantime because he feels embarrassed. He better should be, to be honest, because I remember very well, he was writing that he paid, well, it was the exact value, maybe $8 for Notability 3 years ago. No, it was longer. 3 or 4, I don't know, 4 years ago. But what I remember, he kept writing that he used it to get 2 exams on 2 different universities using this tool. But now that they are starting a subscription, that's it. He will stop using it. He will move on, right? That cannot be the case. And I just thought, what the heck? 2 exams. He even writes it down for himself that he succeeded with these exams based on using Notability as his note-taking application that he paid fucking $8 for. And now he complains about, I don't know what it was. It was a $8 yearly subscription or something like that. This is insane. How can these people study and pass their exams with this type of opinion? Well, I have to
become your boss. Become your boss.
Yeah, that's exactly. Become my boss. That's exactly it. Why we are self-employed, right, Paco? So,
I would like one thing because there's a beautiful quote from a guy called Hans Hoffman that says, "Eliminate the unnecessary so the necessary may speak." And I think that says it all. Okay, talking about gaining clarity and being productive. Okay,
and that's the final word. Thank you, Paco, and thanks for everybody in the chat. We catch you up next week. Have a good time. Bye bye.
See you.